Good evening, good night, and welcome to Mindful Live 400. Yeah, we're at 400 people. Thank you for being here. I am Nathan Springer, your host. It is the 23rd of May in the year of our Lord 2024. May is well along, and as we are in a month like this, the exam month for the Caribbean, I'd like to say that let it be another year when we try to put some scrutiny on CXC, because those people are doing what they want out there. We don't know what's going on. They are governors unto themselves. We don't know what's going on in CXC. We need some help with that. Tubal Bampat says we need a leader like in Africa. Where in Africa? What are you talking about? Africa doesn't have one leader. Africa is a continent with many countries. So what leader you're talking about like in Africa? Which Africa? We need a leader like in Africa. I'm unsure if there are many African leaders that I look at their track record and I say, yep, that's who I want to lead my country. That's the person. Once you're on the inside, of course, hit that like button. Allow the like button to feel your presence. Let it know that this is some good content. That's how you let the algorithm push this out there some more. So you double tap the screen over there on TikTok. That's how you do it. Hit that screen 2 times. Pow, pow. Just like that. I think person who in Congo. Oh, okay. So the Congo that just had a coup, an attempted coup, where they killed some of the co-conspirators and all of that. We need leadership like that. Listen. Some of the Pan-Africanists on the extreme side are seriously LARPing, you know. LARPing is L-A-R-P, live action role playing. That's those guys who played too many of those RPGs growing up, too many of those fantasy games, and they're out there in the streets attempting to play a fantasy game with real life. When you look at Africa and see all of those bloody conflicts and machetes flying around, if you see that and you see glory in black people massacring each other, something is wrong with you. I'm sorry, that doesn't seem like a good time to me. That doesn't seem like a positive use of my efforts and my life. So, no. If I have a say in the matter, I would much prefer not have a leader like the person in the Congo. No. I'm sorry if that might disappoint you, but no. No thanks. So yes, people, hit that like button, double tap the screen over there on Instagram, hit the like button over on YouTube if you are viewing this. If you have something to say, drop a comment, tell me what you think out there on YouTube. I do read those comments. I try to read and even respond to as many of them as possible. Really and truly all of them, then that many. I meant Burkina Faso. I believe you mean there. Ni or Fas. So I think you mean Burkina Faso. And to be very honest with you, I don't follow all of the African countries and their news. I do not know who the leader of Burkina Faso is. And I do not know why he may be particularly a positive force in leadership. I don't know. I can't say that, just from your statement here, I take your word on it and I want the leader of Burkina Faso to lead our country. I can't say that. I do not know who the guy is. I just don't know. So I can't say. Why would you say I have a video of the person who I'm talking about? Well, I am confident in if you take a snippet video of Kamala Prasad Bisesa or Dr. Keith Rowley at their best, at their most eloquent, that if you send a video to someone like that, they would think that, yeah, those are some great leaders too. So, yeah, the video might be good, but I don't know if one video doth a leader make. any further questions, people? You know what we do on a Thursday, in case anyone is wondering, what we do on a Thursday is Thursday Talks. We come in and we're just talking, we're chatting, we're discussing whatever topics arise in the chat, whatever questions or comments are made. You can feel free to request to be a guest in the chat too, also on TikTok there. Jump in and actually have a discussion. We can actually talk about whatever topic you would like to discuss. Six and seven gangs allegedly in Palo Seco. Those gangs seemingly are headquartered in the north of the country. For them to have enough of a presence in Palo Seco, to have a whole gang war squabble, that seems real curious to me. I'd like to see that story as it develops. All that has to be said, because I don't know. Blessings, Nicholas Jiker, and what's going on? What's happening, bro? Intruders from warring gangs 6 and 7 engaged in a bloody brawl at Palo Seco Government Secondary School on Thursday, wounding several students. Listen, I'm wondering too if at this point we're kind of getting to the convenient blaming stage. I don't know how old all of you inside of the live are, but I'm a millennial. I remember when the main gang talk, the main gang discussion was on Rasta City and Muslims. How many of you all remember that? The Rasta City versus Muslims gang talk. And then the media seemed to take that to mean every single violent act in this country is done by one out of those two while fighting with each other. So a prime example of their misunderstanding of that is in Enterprise in central Trinidad and Tobago. There was a bit of back and forth for territory, etc., whatever the reason might be, violence. But both sides were Muslims. They were all Muslims in the group. Well, nominally, I'm not here to argue whether they are really Muslims by religion and following and all of that. Nominally, they all called themselves Muslims. And in the news, they had it as Rasta City versus Muslims, and there were no Rasta City in Enterprise fighting anyone. They were all Muslims, but it was a convenient narrative for the news. So I could wonder that also in that that's Palo Seco Secondary School fight. Like, is it really actual members of the 6 and 7 gangs that got into a brawl? Like, real actual members? How police could kill the 4 kidnappers, something not making sense there, Nicholas Jaikaran says. I've seen that statement all over. That something isn't making sense with the police and the killing of those young men. But I don't know. I don't know the facts of the case. I wasn't there. I didn't see when the police went on the raid. But I am not surprised, because allegedly these men may have been part of the resistance gang. The resistance gang in Trinidad has shown themselves to be one of the more bold, violent, and brave groups. They seem to be much more willing to take risk. Between them and was it the other 9 or whatever other group in Tunapuna that was warring, they were doing some insane things. And I mean, if you look at what the police did to what seems to may have allegedly been the opposing group to the resistance gang in Tunapuna, in that Montegran region. Remember, police went in there and killed the online personality known as Dust Boss. Remember, police went in there and did that. I know, gee, you're not following the story I'm talking about here. We're talking about you know that the police went into the hills in Tunapuna in the east, and that's where they found them. So, and remember also, police have already killed about 4 alleged members from the resistance gang. It seems like the police have a very kind of no mercy intent when they run upon these guys. So the other members of the resistance gang were killed. The alleged opponents of the resistance in Tunapuna were also killed by the police. So why would it be surprising if these men from the resistance gang allegedly were in a forested area and the police ran up on them? Why would it be surprising that the police killed them? Nicholas Jaikaran says, I think they staged this whole thing to try and build public trust. I don't think so. I just don't think so. I don't think that our TTPS is competent enough to effectively hire kidnappers, make the kidnapping look real, kidnap a random woman, all control it in such a way that no one finds out, and then murder everyone in the no. You give I think you give Tunapuna AJP allegedly the East-West corridor, but mainly Tunapuna, working in Kelly, St. Augustine region also, that whole general vicinity. I think you're putting too much faith in the TTPS. Yeah, the men were identified, their names, their aliases, and their age and all of that was given. It seemed to me, the way how quick the police dispersed the information and how the senior officer on this case was on the scene, it seemed like the police had a good bit of information on this case. It seemed like the police had some information on this case. And I wouldn't doubt that the police were indeed closing in already. Because, alright, they allegedly arrested 2 men, was it 2 or 1 men, for this kidnapping. And then the woman was released. And then they went up into the hills and killed 4 others. Like, you could wonder if indeed the police were doing good police work and closing in on the kidnappers, because the person they arrested could have led to the release, as the kidnappers felt they were closing in and felt like releasing her would be the only way for them to escape. And by releasing her, what they effectively did, for all you know, the police could have known they were up in the hills there. Like, if the police know that it's the resistance gang that kidnapped them, if the police knew that, you think the police wouldn't have intelligence on the regular hiding areas for the resistance? They knew that they called the area the zone. It was a well-known area for that district, and they went up into the area. For all you know, the police could have already known that those guys were up there. They were just waiting for the kidnapped victim to not be there so that it would have been easier for them to go and do what they do. It wouldn't surprise me if a ransom was paid for a release and they tracked them somehow from that. Neither me, Doc Egg. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I wouldn't doubt that her release and the finding of the alleged kidnappers may be related. Trinidad police have intelligence, bro. Yes, they do. They actually do. If you talk to Trinidad and Tobago police officers, you recognize that the police service isn't in the dark totally. The police service knows. The police service is aware. You talk to someone senior enough on the police service and they could draw you a map of Trinidad and Tobago's underworld and where all the connections go. Now, knowledge isn't the same thing as being able to prove it, one. Two, they would be aware that they are protected people also. So you could know that one person is responsible for a whole area of criminality, but that doesn't mean that you are able to prove it. That doesn't mean that you can get the go-ahead from your seniors to launch an investigation. That doesn't mean that you can get the resources to investigate the person. There are many parts to that. Yeah, some level of heavy hand of resistance against crime has to be taken. And the police, I don't think the police would have been going into the area looking to have a light hand. They would be aware that the general public has a yearning for blood as pertaining to crime. So they know that they have a wide degree of error to play with. Do you think the police service can ever be cleansed of corruption? That's asking if I think human beings can be cleansed of corruption, and I don't think human beings can be cleansed of corruption in totality. So no, I don't think the police service can be cleansed of corruption. I do think they can. There are measures that could lead to a less corrupt police service. I think that could happen, but cleansed in totality, no. The biggest concern for me, it's so much about the gangs, but when they decide to go into people's homes. Exactly, but AJP, that's the truth for many people. The gangs in and of itself, they aren't a worry for most people. You know, if gangs are doing what the gangs are doing on their own time, no one is worried about that. It's the home invasions. Muslim Mention says police looking to be hitmen for the state instead of doing their jobs, just like SSA. There are allegations that they may be hitmen not only for the state. Every profession has bad apples. True, Drago 7, but bad apples in the police service is a little different. It's a little different, and certain professions, bad apples could be more allowable than others. It's according to the nature of the threat, Nicholas Jaikaran. You could threaten Dr. Keith Rowley. It's just according to the nature of the threat. Well, we tried that, AJP. We tried that foreign person with less local connections. Do you remember Iwatsky and Gibbs? And I have said that regularly. That's something that I am kind of a proponent of. I think that's a good idea. I don't disagree. I do not like, I've said this over and over. So for those of you who have been in the live for a while, you know. I don't like the batch idea. I really don't like it. It engenders a kind of gang behavior inside of the police service. I don't want the police to be another gang. And the batch nature, when you select a leader from inside of the batch group, there's a circling of the wagons. There's a in-group bias, a loyalty. And as much as you want loyalty among each other inside of the police service, you need something like that in order to run a service like that. I don't think the leadership needs to be that beholden to the group. Well, wouldn't that be sad, G? Wouldn't that indeed be sad? If a ransom was paid and now the boss is happy and drinking and buying chains, and these boys 4 are dead and one is on his way to prison, how do you feel? Exactly, Chris Scott, he did. We know we need those body cams, bro. Yeah. But body cams, like, yes, I agree. I'm not against body cams, but if we bring body cams in Trinidad and Tobago as it stands, they're going to turn it off. Now on new camera, the lighting location changed a bit. Well, at some point in time, G, if those boys are chopped liver, at some point in time, I'd hope that they recognize this. You're working for people that have no care for you. At some point in time, I'd hope they realize that and turn it around. Make sure you hit that like button, people. Double tap the screen out there on TikTok. Hit that screen, 2 quick taps, tap, tap. Get those likes pumping. What about people who have no care for you now? What are you talking about? Piece of what I saying what? You could hit like over and over and over, you know. Gunfire ensued in the forest is a youth. Gunfire ensued in the forest. I have absolutely zero trust in the police service. None. They are no different to the criminals to me. I disagree, G. And I don't think you live like that. Many people say things like that, but they don't actually live like that. That's like those people who talk and say things like, you know, the Taliban or Hamas is no different than the US government. That is no different. The US government is just like the Taliban. And the US government doing terrorism. But none of them are attempting to go across to Afghanistan. They all want a trip to Miami. Like, stop lying. I understand the point. We don't need to exaggerate. I understand the point. There are many corrupt police in Trinidad and Tobago, and they do not engender a sense of trust among the public. But you don't go looking for the criminals when you see the police. You go looking for the police when you see the criminals. Tubalbampat says the sources of the problem is the guns still coming in the country. No, the guns are not the problem actually. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. AJP says you think our culture is part of the problem for almost being a conveyor belt for gangs. Yeah, but not our culture in totality. There are pockets of our culture that are gang havens. That's a reality. And those cultures create gangs. If the guns weren't coming in, those cultures would create machete gangs. And the guys would go out with cutlasses to do their dirty work. The gang creation is the problem. And it's not the poverty, as I say nearly every night. The crime creates the poverty. It's not that the poverty is creating the crime. There are many people who believe that they would get a faster way forward through criminality. And there has been a police service that has been corrupt enough for so long in Trinidad and Tobago that enough people have become a recalcitrant group in criminality where they see it as working. We have bandit factories in some communities. Yes, we do. Yo, Mikael Modesto. The whole setup is created for that. The whole setup is created for that. And I remember speaking about this when we did an in-depth dive into some of these gangs. And going back since the Eric Williams days, with the Desperados and Jack Spaniards, the original gangs, maybe they were the forebearers of the 6 and 7s. The gangs that Eric Williams made deals with since the 60s. And here's what you do when you do things like that in those communities. You give the community leaders senior positions in state infrastructure. So then the community leader, I spoke about this before, the community leader is the head of the URP and CPEP in the region. So if I, as a youth man, am trying to turn my back on the community leaders grouping, I don't want to join the community leaders group. I say, okay, I'm going to do another job. Now, the crime in my community makes it that the opportunities I have are very limited. So the government said they were going to bring in CPEP and URP and make work programs into my community to help the ghetto youths and make them not have to go into a life of crime. Okay, great. But then they put the community leaders in charge of those make work programs, the CPEP and the URP. So I just blanked big man to join his little boys club. But now when I want a job, I have to go and ask him for a job to go and cut grass at the side of the road. And that's the government doing. The government is forcing me into this position. They are decreasing my options. And that's why I say, I regularly say this. I say this nearly every night. People might get fed up of me saying this. You can't buy out the poverty and solve the crime. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. Good night, Friday forever. People don't want to admit guns coming on the port, sea, and air. That's true. They are coming like that. They are coming like that. Who doesn't want to admit that? Who doesn't want to admit that guns are coming on the port? Who is responsible for the guns coming on the port? I like to make this note also. How about if I am still coming into the country? Yes, because we have corrupt law enforcement, so of course they'll still come in the country. I actually think we need more guns, but in the right hands of law enforcement. AJP, you're talking my language here. I do not think the police service is going to remove the guns from the streets of Trinidad and Tobago. And in that case, the solution isn't to keep hoping the police keep the guns out of the hands of the criminals, but allow people to protect themselves. G says a certain political leader want to be PM, say that's a lie all coming from Venezuela. That's not true. That is rubbish. We have scanners on the port that aren't working for years. And when asked about it by the minister in Parliament, those responsible said, when it going to fix? Why it not working? Those, I read that in Alive here on the news. They dragged them before the Parliament and asked them about those scanners. What you talking about Venezuela? Like if someone needs to risk their high-powered rifles getting all that seawater and stuff coming over. No. They're getting their stuff bubble wrapped inside of a barrel coming in a container. Evening, Anderson. They could get instruction manuals because it comes out of the box. They don't have to get it in feed bags off of a pirogue. And the problem is, a lot of people think that the ghetto youths can't afford that. That, it's only the top level business people in this country doing that. Listen, I'd have you know, as I keep saying, some of those ghetto youths are very wealthy all on their own. Friday Forever says you can believe a gang leader in jail, influential and intimidating business owners. Craziness. I can't believe it. Because phones are regular in jail, and that's an easily solvable problem. Chris Scott says his Trinbago people are capable of a FUL-free country. Well, here's the thing, Chris Scott, that I keep saying whenever people ask this question. As it stands right now in this country, all the lawbreakers that want a gun have a gun. So that's basically all the worst people that can have a gun already do. Men making their salary before payday reach. Corrupt customs officers, scanners not working for years. Correct. Ronnie World, hey. Looking clean, thank you, thank you, thank you. Reposition the light and stuff, you know. Looking sharp out here. I know that allegation Friday forever. The allegation is the same person is creating problems all along the shopping, the vendors' regions by Caroni. They're the roundabout by Caroni. It's alleged that same person was responsible for the series of murders in St. Augustine. And at some point in time, like, we have to say, okay, that person is not responsible. It has to be the prison service. Like any murder sanctioned from behind the bars, we blame it on the prison service. Because that is what it is. We know this. That is what it is. That's why, and I try not to get callous and feel heartless and say good and all that kind of thing, because human life is human life and you don't know who might be innocent and who might be guilty. But when you see prison officers at risk and their lives in danger, oftentimes it's their fault. Maybe not the single officer who is in danger, but not the single officer who is in danger, but the prison service on a whole. It is their fault. How do we stop the corruptions on the Port Motsiane? I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. How do we stop it? I think a lot of Trinidad's bureaucratic nature, and you look at the African countries, you look at the freed Caribbean countries, a lot of the countries that got their independence within the end of the 20th century, there and thereabouts, and you look at a lot of them that took up some leftist views on governance. They created bureaucratic systems. Bureaucratic systems with public servants and key intermediaries all around in it. And those systems are given to corruption. One of the best ways to avoid corruption is not put human beings in a position that could be corruptible. You see, that's the kind of idea of the free market that, like, people call capitalism, but I prefer speaking about it as the free market. The idea of the free market is everyone seeks their own best interest. So I don't have to depend on Dr. Rowley to actually care about the people of Trinidad and Tobago so much that he's going to seek our best interest. No. He seeks his best interest. I seek my best interest. You seek your best interest. We all seek our own best interest, and we trade on that basis. And that's kind of the one thing you could depend on people to do. The part of the problem is we keep looking for the government for solutions, and a lot of the times that government and state functioning in those areas are the problems in the first place. It's like I was refreshing some history on the Prohibition era in the United States, the 1920s and stuff, and reading about Frank Costello and Luciano and Genovese and those guys in the mafia, the Italian mafia, and even possibly the Kennedy's father, the Kennedy patriarch back in the 20s. And they spoke of how the Italian mafia and most of the mafia players actually became significantly stronger when the government jumped in and believed they could have stopped people from drinking alcohol. You know, Chris Scott, ironically enough, I think the doctor's move with Caribbean stuff is actually the more accurate move for the country. That's what our leadership is supposed to be doing. Our leadership is supposed to be out there facilitating the private sector, trying to boost the private sector, trying to boost people to engage in the free market. That's how you solve a lot of the corruption. I don't need to pay a bribe because no one is there stopping me from selling. Tubalbampa says we can solve crime by first start with who is financing the bodies for it to go on. Financing which bodies? Financing which bodies? You do understand that the criminal networks finance themselves. The criminal networks finance themselves. It's not like they need an external financier to pay them money to sell drugs. They sell drugs to make money. The public service is part of the government in Trinidad, yes. I have watched many of these YouTube videos from YouTuber Chris Musselist, and many of the visits, many of the places he visits says the government is the problem. Yep. And I actually don't think that's how you solve crime, you know. Bro, Carib gonna benefit our finances or the 1% finances? You don't know Trinidad don't own the what? Let's not be ignorant now. How many people does Carib employ? Look around the country and see how many Carib signs you see sponsoring different events. Many people get this idea from listening and watching way too much socialist talking points and many of those union liars lying in your head. But the 1% in your country generally pay the most of the taxes, you know. I wonder how, if you make less than $10,000 in Trinidad and Tobago, do you think you pay a lot of taxes? Nathan, the question is, are they paying their taxes? I am not talking about even taxes though in terms of the benefit though. The benefit isn't just in taxes, because in reality, I would prefer much less taxes. I prefer nearly no taxes, to be honest. I don't care for the government to take the Sabgas money. I think the Sabgas would use their money better than Colm Imbert would use it. By and large. That's my earnest belief. So I am not hopped up on the hope that Dr. Rowley and them go take money from the Sabgas so that they could give we thing. I'm not of that kind of greedy ilk. My idea is that I would like to create a product or provide a service that is so good people are willing to pay me for it. And all I want from the government is that they don't get involved in the process to obstruct me getting that payment, and they make sure that I can safely acquire it. You know, the criminals. But in Trinidad and Tobago, the rich get richer so the poor can work for them. No. The poor work for the rich, and that's how the poor get richer. Actually. That's how the poor in many places do get richer. You see, it's a funny thing where many people don't look at the bottom levels. They look at the top. So they look at the wealth gap. But to me, the real thing to look at is the bottom line. If the poorest person in your country makes $20,000 per month, but the richest person makes $1 billion, is that a problem? Many people will say yes. And they would prefer if everybody made $10 a month. So let us all be poor equally instead of some people be richer than me. That's envy. That's what that is. Envy. Friday Forever, what are your thoughts on Chinese laundry tax owed to the government and the government freezes? If it's true, good on the government. You see that idea that many unionists and the more left-wing types has sold, where People always look at wealthier people with envy in their eyes. You are always convinced that you know how to best use the wealthiest people's money. Well, why don't you attempt to create something of your own and sell it? Like, people talk about, well, yeah, so the rich get richer and all you could do is work for them. Well, if you are convinced that your work is so valuable, go offer your work on the free market. See what people will pay you for your work. We're not watching the wealthy, it's the cost of living, bro. And who causes that cost of living problem? Is it the Sabgas? Or is it the same people who watching the Sabgas and I want more money? Government, raise the minimum wage. You all asked for that. You all asked for the minimum wage to increase. And then surprised about the increasing cost of living. Coming across a little elitist. It may sound like that, but I'll say I'm on the further end from elitist. I'd actually say I'm more on the end of populist. But I like to be realistic. And I understand that very often to sell populism to the populace, people lie to them. So you have people working barely 4 hours a day, and some politician is trying to convince them that the reason they have less than the wealthy man has more is because the place unfair. Curvon says drop interest rates, make credit cheaper and drive inflation. This is why talking about Burkina Faso, so how he runs the country, I don't know. The government does this. The billionaires get tax breaks. My over 10,000 getting taxed, so let the billionaires pay, G says. I can assure you, G, billionaires pay more taxes than you. Go pull up those studies, go pull up the statistics, and see who are the net positive taxpayers in countries. It might surprise you from what you've heard. If you own a business, G, do you own a business by chance? I don't think you own a business. If you own a business, you'd recognize that businesses pay a lot, especially if you're making. They do not. Why have had 2 examples this week? Yes, that's tax evasion. But did you hear how much they owe in taxes? When they don't pay taxes, did you hear the numbers? Hello, JBL down under. Did you hear the kind of numbers? Do you pay that amount in taxes? Do your taxes rack up close to $100 million? By chance? Perchance, do your taxes do that? His taxes alone, paying a salary, well, supposed to, if they paid it, but they didn't. If they paid it, their taxes alone, paying a whole division salary. Well, no. I'm not talking about whether they have a right to owe it. I'm not talking about that. That's tax evasion, allegedly, seemingly, and they will be punished for that. We're not talking about the tax evasion. That's a crime. That's a crime. But I'm talking about how much they are supposed to pay. That's you are proving my point that the wealthiest people in this country pay the most taxes. Listen, it's 94 million they're telling the man, yo, like, bro, what? And you all understand that 94 million is from money that his business made. The government is saying, we want that from you, out of badness, basically. Or else we throw you in jail. It's not like the government sent somebody over to the man business and sold movie tickets or anything like that, you know. It's not like the government sent a DJ down to Star 94 and ran a shift, and the government didn't do any of that. They just collect. And we just collect from them. We go in the hospital and they give us the things free. Not knowing is some rich businessman tax money is paying for that. And you watch that and say, I want more. And you know what the greed does? It has happened over and over in the world. We know what happens. We know what happens. Those greedy people get in and they say, we want more. We're going to squeeze them rich people. The rich people are rich. They leave. And they leave you with nothing.
I was saying, good night, everybody.
Good night, good night.
On a request, somebody in the comments asked to come up. I could add people if you want me to add.
Yeah, add.
Okay. Oh, I feel like I...
Good night, bro.
Aaron boss. Aaron boss. How much is health surcharge? Aaron boss, check your health surcharge and then look up the budget for the Ministry of Health. Like, what going on too, Val?
Yeah, I was saying that the merchants is the ones that pay the tax, but the billionaires is the ones does not pay any tax. Just like somebody like Trump or people who are vast in business does not pay tax.
That's not true. Because Trump pays taxes. People would like him to pay more taxes, but many of the people that say that don't understand, because people think that billionaires are like Scrooge McDuck and they have a money bin with $1 billion in gold coins and they want 20% of $1 billion in gold coins and they're supposed to come and drop that into the government's treasury. But that's not actually how it works. So Elon Musk over the pandemic shot up his net worth to some $100 and something billion. But it's not like cash went into a cash bank somewhere. He owned a company. People said that this company has become more valuable because of the possibility of what it could earn in the future. And all of a sudden they say he is worth that much. Now, theoretically, he maybe could sell his ownership in the company to get the cash. But here's what's going to happen. Every share he sells is going to make the rest of shares worth less. So he cannot actually get the same amount he is worth. So even if you were to sell out all of the shares, he's not going to get that cash. So that's not the cash he has. Also, that net worth is tied up in the running of the company. That's why their worth is like that. So when he paid the 11 billion in taxes or something ridiculous like that, he paid, was it a year or 2 years ago, and he made a whole thing of that. The most taxes ever paid by a single person. He had to sell shares to pay that. So people, what is the thing? Some people want to tax billionaires on the unrealized gains. So I buy shares in a company. The company's stocks, the stock prices rise. So I bought shares, how many ever shares I bought, and I bought it at $5. The share price rises to $10, it doubles. So my worth, whatever my investment amount is in that company, doubles. So now it looks like I own twice as much. But I haven't actually realized those gains yet. I haven't cashed out the stocks. So that's not money in my pocket. Okay, when you look at the Forbes list of riches, they're going to put that in and say I'm worth that much. But those aren't gains that are realized. If you tax that because my net worth went up because my stocks inflated in value over this year, and you want to tax my increase in worth, then I would have to sell my stocks to give the money to the government. You understand what you're going to do? I am going to be selling stocks, weakening a company to give it to the state who wastefully spends money.
Just one quick to understand you get taxed on your income. It's so money that you make, right? Your income. But these billionaires, whoever has on their income, they have a net worth. So it's like, and as you said, Nathan, things that they invested in and all of that. If they have to pay taxes on it, they have to liquidate, right? And just to a little bit, the liquidation of things, again, you're weakening your stock. So even if, and just the name of it, like me owning Tesla, didn't have the same worth as, and now me owning Twitter is not going to have the same worth as, so all of these things that people put the taxi rich and eat rich and these things, it's like all fun and games, but nobody really puts into to understand how it works, right? And then I hate the hypocrisy behind the taxi rich, because taxing the rich does nothing really, and truly all they do is pass it on to everybody else, because they are the ones that provide, they are the ones putting value into the economy, like, hey, right, I'm not saying that what you do is not putting value into the economy, but don't get me wrong, I'm saying they are providing services, they are providing products, right? If all you are doing is either working for them, consuming off of them, then you have no place to say what they should sell their product or their service for. And if you're saying tax them more, what they're gonna do is charge you more for it, because you're real. If it's me, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm real serious. If it's me, tax me. I don't care, because tax going to come to 5 cents on every product that I sell. But you, Mr. Man, who come and buy me, to be paying me a whole $1 more, and I make more money. So it makes no sense to do the tax there and to just raise the overheads more, because they still make more money from that, and they get to justify it, because they get to say, well, minimum wage went up. The minimum wage only went up by like $3. Everything went up by 10.
Yeah, and that's the reality when we speak about them owning. A lot of what their worth is in assets. So when inflation happens, their asset value increases. That's why inflation is a tax on the poor. You ask for minimum wage to help the poor people. Inflation tracks with minimum wage, raises everything all around. Their asset values increase in price, so inflation has zero effect on them. In fact, if you compare the inflated value of their assets compared to the increase in the salaries they have to pay out, their assets probably went up more. And that's why the billionaires got richer during the COVID pandemic. Because inflation. And the thing is, the ironic thing in a lot of that is when people look at that and they're upset about that and they're trying to find solutions, the solutions they find are to make the rich richer again. Oh, we want minimum wage. Make the rich richer again. And when you talk about taxing the rich, you do understand taxing the rich isn't bringing money into your pocket. Everybody understands that. Where do taxes go? Taxes go to the state. Taxes go to the government. Hey, look, the ignoramus. Taxes go to the government. So, is it that you believe Dr. Rowley could spend the money best? Really? Do you think the government best utilizes the finances of the country? Because that's where taxes go. It's the fake out that the socialists, the leftists have been hitting people since the 19th century. Allow the workers to own the means of production. What that really means is decentralized power owns everything. You feel like you own it. No, you don't own it. The government owns it. Tax the rich and redistribute the income. What does that actually mean? That the people in governance now have the power over all of your private property. That's all that really means, you know. It doesn't mean that you're going to get better things because they care about you so much, because we already, I think, we settled the question of how much politicians care about us. What it actually means is you're going to dissolve the private property rights laws, and now the government is going to own everything. People, not some entity that has been created and crafted by the gods or God himself to perfectly run humankind as a machine. No, human beings. G says, Nathan, as a businessman, I'm sure you know the loopholes there are for tax breaks. Yes, there are. And I will take every last one of them.
As you should. As you absolutely should.
I will claim it all, every last one. If I don't know, I vex. I'm beating up myself if I pay a tax I wasn't supposed to. Because here's the question I always ask myself. So, okay, let's say an additional 1,500 in taxes. That 1,500, would I have spent that better? Or would Colm Imbert have spent that better? And my answer is always the same. Every time I ask the question, my answer is the same. I trust my spending better than I trust theirs. What's going on, Tubal? Beside the fact that, yes, the billionaires do pay taxes. Oh. What they do is a reflection of what the people who put them in charge wanted under a constitutional democracy. Well, and here's the problem with a democracy. If 10% of the democracy, 10% of the people in the democracy, because there's something called the Pareto distribution, where in nearly everything, the people who do best are a very small bit. The writers who write the vast majority of novels are a few writers. The best footballers that score the majority of goals are a few footballers. The best basketballers that score the majority of hoops are a few basketballers. In nearly everything, there's a distribution where few people do the top. That's just the nature of existence. If you are upset with that, go quarrel with God and the universe, because it's seen even in the stars. So if 10% of your population makes the vast majority of the money, and they basically pay for the other 90% of the population because of taxes, and we have progressive taxes, you know, where the rich are supposed to pay more, pay their fair share. All right, okay. 10% of the population pays for 90% of the population. What kind of incentive would you be creating? Because bear in mind, it's a democracy. So once 50% of the population choose something, it's done. What happens if 50% could choose what happens with the money and resources of 10%?
That's not completely true. He's saying that it's past the stage of being a tax free, blah, blah, blah. That's not really true, because year on year,
yes, Reeve.
taxes are, well, okay. It's not completely untrue either, but year on year we see the taxes being changed. See, the tax bracket is being changed constantly. So every year for the last how much years the tax bracket went up steadily, I believe. Yeah. To the point where they even introduced the tax, well, I don't know if that was me, but the higher tax percent. They're making more than $1 million. And I had to laugh, because as I was telling my supervisor, I was the manager actually, I was like, only one person, the whole entire country should not to be able to be paying that. And that is the comptroller of accounts, because he makes over $1 million a year. He's the only person that will be paying that. Because if I'm making $1 million in my business, maybe you ain't getting that tax money. But if you paying it to me,
well, exactly. That's the problem with those with salaried workers, isn't it? As a salaried worker, you have no choice. You have no choice. But listen, I see some construction services person jumping in the chat there. People in those kind of jobs where when you do a job, you collect money cash in hand.
yeah.
Listen, how are you going to tax me? And then people have all kind of techniques. No, I am not actually making over $1 million. No. I make 500,000 and my wife makes 500,000. So it's not $1 million, it's 500. And if we start to go up even more, well, I start to pay my daughter a salary too. All of us are no, it's not just us. And then, bear in mind, I am collecting not even $500,000 in salary. I'm only getting $100,000 in salary. I'm also getting another $50,000 in housing allowance, another $100,000 in vehicle allowance, another this in this allowance, another that in this allowance, another that in this allowance, and another that.
Well, not only that, not only allowances, however, but all the expenses are covered under the business, even though it's all London. If it's Scotland or even, I don't know if it's the whole of the UK, but Scotland for sure they pull back the taxing. So like, you could no longer take a trip and be like, oh, that was business expense. You know, like before people used to do that, and then that's not allowed anymore in Scotland. But anyway, I read this person talking about the UAE and this and that and that. Man call every single dictatorship in the whole wide world to say that they do not have taxes. Of course they don't. Of course they don't. They are dictators. Well, what does the state them have?
They are monarchies. They have a supreme leader. So of course it's easy for them to do it like that. And bear in mind, no taxes in a monarchy where there's a supreme leader. That's a funny thing because he basically owns everything in the land anyway. So no taxes is an interesting point to make there. But there are other countries with no tax. Isn't it Bermuda or some one of those have no income taxes? There are states in the United States that have nearly no taxes. There are places that function like that. And the idea is that the more money you give a government, the more money they need. No government says that they have all the money they need to see about everything they need to see about. The more money you give a government, they just find more things to spend the money on. So maybe we have less spending from the government and collect less of those taxes too. We have free healthcare, of course we do. Are any of their citizens suffering in any of the countries named? Yes, they are. But it's not like you would hear about it very easily.
It's not like you could hear about it either.
But you know, Kevon, as you're saying there, Florida has no income tax but high property taxes. That's what I was talking about with the property taxes, where if you allow local governments to set the property taxes, I might not mind that. Where in my area, if the property tax is high, but it's because we have a very effective local governing body, fine. Like, allow them to do that. That was my thing with the property tax. Name one, Nathan. Name one. So wait. Go see how many bodies buried under the Qatari stadiums. They built for the World Cup. Go see how many bodies buried there, and see if any of their family members were able to ask for a commission of inquiry. If they were able to placard outside of the government building.
But Nathan, wait. I just want to say, the same person who's talking about tax receipt is the same one who's saying that the 1% need to pay more taxes. So I confused. Is tax free or pay more taxes?
I'm not totally sure. Many people have delusions about places that they think are so good. Like I said this at the start, it really bothers me how many people have bought into that. It's a modern kind of woke mindset where many people believe that the US is so bad. So anywhere that hates the US is actually better than the United States tells you. And you find out that single lady travelers sometimes go to find that out, and they find out, oh yes, there are actually evil people in this world. You see me say the 1% need to pay more taxes. Weren't you saying that, G? On the topic of taxes and government, there is a correlation between government not wanting the people to own firearms and the impetus to increase taxes. Well, there's a correlation between the government not wanting the people to own firearms and whining in your face. Because, generally speaking, when the people own firearms, it's much more difficult for the government to do disrespectful things to the people because they can shoot you. Pretty simple. It's a pretty simple equation. If a government wants to do things that may make people want to shoot them, they wouldn't want the people to have guns. It's kind of simple like that. I said if I have to pay taxes, they should at least pay theirs. It's that simple. And the point I was making is that they do. They actually do. And the idea that they don't is incorrect for the most part. Yes, they are tax evaders, as we see on the news. But it's illegal. It's not like this is something that is welcome. It's not like billionaires or millionaires, once they reach that level, don't have to pay taxes. Because their accounts are being garnished. Have you ever had an account garnished? Anybody here? Have you ever had that happen? So yes, they do pay taxes. Yes, they don't want the population to be able to be actively dissident. KP says, I take the point about government not wanting us to have guns to control us better. G says, and yes, I pay taxes. I am a seaman. My salary is over the tax threshold. Nobody likes those taxes. Nobody does. That's why, like, how many people you think doing an odd job extra on the outside, get some cash in hand, and going to declare how much extra cash they got to the government to pay more taxes? Reese says, I now scrolling through CNC3 and realize whole time we talking about chin with the VIR. Yeah, bro. It seems like something is passing through the what you call the, oh gosh, the Chinese it keeps eluding me. The people of Chinese origin. There seems to be a bit of problem that they're facing with the Board of Inland Revenue of late. I saw he wants to expand into GE as well. Diaspora. Thank you, Kulvon. That's the word that was eluding me. Diaspora was the word I was looking for. Yeah, there seems to be a bit of a problem. Even though there are some interesting stories on that, almost all of those stories come from The Guardian, which is of interest because The Guardian is a business paper. The Guardian is owned by Ansa McCall. Keep that in mind. There could be competition, etc., among the businesses. But The Guardian wrote a story last week or week before about a leasing. One of the Caribbean's magnates, I believe he's a billionaire out of Jamaica, has business interests all around the Caribbean, primarily Jamaica. And they spoke about him owing some money to some bank or something of the such. And then I believe he sued them the day after, saying that the story was not 100% correct. So there is that to throw in there. There is that. So you see, sometimes with these things, we could get a totally generalized view, and that's not the detailed view. That's not the nuanced understanding of it. If you get a nuanced understanding, you see things in a different light. I just don't know. Telling me 96 million owed kinda doesn't tell me much. Alright, people. Any further questions or comments?
You told me to come on here at 10:30?
No. I've been on here over an hour already.
Oh, sorry, I guess my notification was real bad then. My notification is bad, man. Not bad. I miss Wally too. That sucks. And on your 400th episode. Oh
But
gosh.
talk, Ronnie. Hey, missed the talk. We ain't gone yet.
Just winding up. Winding up. I don't really have anything. I just like to chit chat with all of you. But then I just be alone. Not be lonely. I just had to come on here and talk to her.
Ronnie, that's what Tanti Cams was talking about.
I never said Tanti Camps was wrong.
I know.
Listen, you know that you saw that video by chance with the 29-year-old girl who was crying in her car about how she couldn't find a man or she didn't have a man or whatever. I feel like that's a lot of us now. It's not that we don't want one, it's just that we need a decent one to come by. We're not even looking for the 666 thing. I think that'll be rude a long time. I never wanted that because that's hunting. I think I just wanted a decent man, and I feel like it had to come by. If it's speaking honest.
I agree, and I remember saying this probably nearly 2 years ago already, and that's why I think the narrative sold to young women is so pernicious. That's what makes it so cruel, because for young women it's, I think, much more irreversible. Like, if you tell young men some erroneous ideas about relationship and they go through their 20s with those wrong things, and alright, they catch themselves at 30, you know, they're still in prime relationship age, and there are realities. I know it's spoken about ad nauseum and some people attempt to deny it, but there are realities with age and femininity and relationship where, generally speaking, you'd almost never hear a 21-year-old woman say the same problem that you're talking about there, Ronnie. And maybe that's the solution.
Sorry, I guess I wasn't listening because I didn't hear a solution there.
You don't hear 22-year-olds complaining about what you complain about. And that's the solution.
That's not really true though, because it could be, and I think I had this same thing, the same response to you. When I was 22, the people I was talking to wasn't serious. They weren't serious. So 22 years old.
Were you serious at 22?
I would think so. I was always listening.
I find that hard to believe. That you've been serious. Are you saying, as a female, you've been seriously searching since 20? Since early 20s?
Not seriously searching, but I mean, like, I would have entertained a serious relationship.
Well, you see, therein is the problem. I think, and this was a popular thing in generations before, but millennial women hate when matriarchs give them this kind of advice. They hate it. How dare you tell me about when I should look for a relationship and marry? When the millennial girls were 18, 19, and the matriarchs, the tanties in 2000 and the tanties in 2015, 2016 were starting to talk. Nah, actually, I'm saying the wrong time. That would be 2010. The tanties in 2010 were telling them about, hey, when you're getting married, they cussed them. How dare you? We're going backward. You're regressing the progress that women have made. But there are realities with that. Realities that some cultures teach. And some cultures teach it so that there are 19-year-olds in certain cultures that they hunting. You play around and talk to that 19-year-old, you're going to end up down the aisle in a very short time because they are serious. Millennials waited too late. It's not that they hated it, it's millennials waited too late. And okay, some of the millennial men might just marry a Gen Z, but what's going to happen to those millennial women? What's going to, there's no way to magically manufacture, a large group of good, worthy 30 to 40-year-old men.
We are looking at the obituary, get them a bit older, nothing wrong with that. No, but Nathan, and I understand, I fully agree, like, I wish, because that was my thing when I was growing up. It was never, my parents was never on that thing. My parents was always go to school. That was my parents. Right?
Exactly.
And then I knew that I would have been interested in that serious thing at the age of 14. Yeah, that one. I was like, you know something, I want to be a mother. That was my thing. I always wanted to be a mother, but I always wanted to be married first. Like, that was serious. So that's why I just thought, you know, like, if somebody serious came out ready,
but it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing because you would have been apprehensive. I wouldn't doubt that there would have been serious people cross your path, but very likely you would have been apprehensive. I know someone who I grew up with, and I remember them in their younger age used to be talking about they wanted to be married by 18. But then they went to a convent, and when they spoke about that nonsense was dispelled from their minds. And okay, well, 33 and single now.
Damn. I hope that's not me.
And there are many in the older generation that did an injustice to the younger generation. They were sold, and to be fair to them, they were told that if you get your child educated, that's the secret to making your child happy. Make sure your child is educated. So that's what they ensure. Don't get involved in that man and that boy and girl nonsense now. Stay on your education. But that's not the only thing in life. Like, I remember I've been a counselor in various camps around the place, and sometimes, you know, in camps they talk about, in the planning side of the camps, they talk about, you know, you're not wanting the young people, the boys, the girls, if it's a co-ed camp, to couple off too much, you know, there's bacchanal in that. But regularly, I would highlight that, okay, you don't want them to inappropriately couple off, but you actually do want them to couple off. Like, it's strange. Now countries all around the world seem to be now realizing this and now introducing measures to try and encourage young people to couple off. Reeve says, I can't afford no children, Nathan, but I could afford the education though. What? How? A child is cheaper than an education, just so you know. A child is cheaper than an education. And the idea of afford a child, that a child costs so much money, is a modern narrative. I always say this. I constantly say this. There's nearly no one in Trinidad and Tobago that cannot afford a child. The people who really cannot afford a child, they aren't even considering that. So if you were considering that, very likely you could afford a child. A lot of women who single and or childless have a certain age, after a certain age, have a lot of hang-ups. Well, yeah. Mini mindful cheaper than a bachelor's? Yes. What do you feel costs? Well, yes. But I'm talking about the actual cost. What do you feel a child costs? What is the cost of a child really and truly? Yes, G, they sold it real hard and many people bought it. And that children are so expensive. Listen, these people are, if you check the weekly spending of some of these single young people, they spend money. I can't remember who it was I heard this from. Somebody, they told me that young working single women spend money like drug dealers. And after I heard that, I was like, that is so true. When I look at the group of young single working women, they are the ones always on a trip. You know, listen, you know how expensive plane tickets are? I would like to take a trip, but there are always other priorities in my mind. But they are taking trips right through. So what you talking about can't afford?
We looking for a husband. We had to travel to find him.
Sure you do.
I know there's some good ones in Grenada.
Oh, okay. 18 years of Pampers, textbooks, and toys. 18 years is distributed. And if your child needs Pampers for 18 years, you have more significant problems. Textbooks, you have the internet. Toys are nearly totally unnecessary. You'd see nearly every parent says it. You buy thousands of dollars in toys and the child goes and plays with the empty tissue roll. Like those, a lot of the spending that is spent on children, if we're being honest, is about keeping up with the Joneses. It's about keeping up appearances to compare with your status group. So your child, your friend's child has the newest playpen. They brought in their baby bag. It's some brand name. And they bought this Fisher Price that, and they bought this that, and this Mattel that, and the other that. So when you're having your child, how it could look. How it could look. I don't want to look like I poor. I don't want to look like I not buying anything for my child. So I buy it too. Like if your child asks you for that. Any child, any baby come out and ask for a Fisher Price set? No baby asking for that. So the vast majority of the spending, even from before the birth, I'm seeing people these days with ultrasounds weekly. Like every week you have to see the baby inside your belly. If you wait 9 months, you're going to see them every day. And then if you do that, the cost of having a baby would seem enormous. Your friend tells you that how much my baby visits to have my baby run up to like 15,000, and that was before I even went in the hospital. That was just to visit my gyno. Like 15,000. Baby's so expensive. Michelle says, isn't it a parental instinct to want to give their child the best of life? Correct. 100%, Michelle. 100%. And that's why I understand why it is. And I understand why the narrative works. But that's why I try to disabuse people of that belief. Because it's wrong. I understand that it's a parental instinct. And that's why the narrative bought on, was sold so well by the people who want people to make less babies. Like, it's funny to me. People are listening to these people advising them on how best to live their lives. And these people have written books and studies saying, we think there should be less human beings. We want less of those people in the Caribbean. They are problematic and they breathe up too much of our oxygen. And you listening to them on life advice. They want less of you.
You shouldn't go to the private hospitals to make babies. Like, stop doing that shit.
No. They're going to 90. If you have the baby there, very likely you're going to end up being cut. Very likely, because it costs more and it's safer for them. It's a more controlled setting. So very likely you're going to end up being cut. And cut it. Maybe I should have a mother to talk about these things, but there's a difference between cut and natural, and I would suggest, I would advise, if there is one direction you're hoping, you might want to hope for the way your body kind of is engineered to do it. But if you go private, very likely they're going to cut you. If complications arise, they're sending you public anyway.
Exactly. And
So,
when you child up in a foil and sending you.
what are you really paying for? So I'll say I went private for the run-up, but the birth was in public, obviously. Why would I go there? Yep, Michelle, yep. I've been around people who have had one or the other, and it's so different. And this is what annoys me so much, especially now with me having a daughter. you could nearly feel to smack some of the older women. These were the things that were regular topics to speak about. Women come and this is what they speak about. Okay, which is worse? Which is more difficult? Which takes longer to heal? Which makes it difficult for you to bond with the baby? Etc., etc. Instead, anytime women come, women issues. The only women issues is women empowerment. How we could work harder, work longer hours, and reach further than men in the job field and kill our babies. Abortion. That's all for women issues. All the women issues are wrong. Like, at some point, ladies, at some point you have to pause and take a check. Even if you call yourself pro-choice and you believe that nothing is wrong with it, like at some point itself, pause and take a look and wonder, how did this become women's issues? How is it that women at 35 are unaware that after 35 it's called geriatric pregnancy? How come women who have eggs, ovaries, and uterus don't understand that all of those eggs are there before you were born and they're aging? Like, these are issues that women should know. But no. Let's have another woman conference to have another woman CEO come to tell all the women how to be a boss babe. Like, goodness, someone make a woman's conference with a tantina, a good old matriarch tanty, and let her come and talk to me. And a set of women going in blindly into adulthood. I think older women struggled in marriage and didn't want it for their daughters. And I think they were fools. Because everybody struggles in life. So it's like, okay, I struggled in life, so I don't want life for my daughter. That's folly.
Alan, I don't see Alan in the chat, but he requested to come in the live. Alan, I needed to send a message in the chat, and then I'll add you to the live.
Yeah, it's folly. It's folly. And it was a narrative sold. You could go back in time and see who and see who started these narratives and sold these narratives to women that this is a hard life. Don't have this for your daughter. And you know what's the irony of it? Is it wasn't even only sold to women, it was sold to society. Because some fathers told their daughters the same thing. Girl, you have to go out there and work and you can't depend on no man out there. You know? Me or my daughter had to depend on no man. You know? Some fathers did the same thing.
That's my daddy's.
And I'd say that's folly too. Because I never had my parents tell me they don't want me to depend on a woman. I remember in my early 20s going out and my mother wanting to know where I going. I say, as a big man, what you want to know where I going for? She say, but you're still living here. I say, so okay, if I move out, you wouldn't have to know. She say, nah, I still had to know. So I say, wait. What you saying? I always have to just be under tabs by you. But it was an argument where we were having a playful banter of sorts. And she was like, yes, until you get a wife. And then you would be under the tabs of your wife.
Big of moms.
Like, she did not tell me, you know, I want my son to not have to depend on no woman out there, you know. Watch it for them old cookish women and a boy. Like, what? No. We as human beings live in basically lifelong partnerships. So a huge part of training someone 0 to 20 should be training them to and how to get into those lifelong partnerships. Ease me up, read. All my ladies independent Beyonce. The irony is the Beyonce ain't independent. That's what's so funny about a lot of these things. I was watching an interview recently. Rihanna showing her business, her headlights, all about the place during the 20 teens. Rihanna hot gallery rain down the place all about. Now on a red stage, they ask her, do you regret any dresses? Well, if I could go back, I look at myself with my nipples out and I'm like, oh my gosh, as a mother now, if I could go back, and no. And a whole generation of young girls bought into that folly. Beyonce balling all the single ladies. Or if you think that you're irreplaceable, no, I'll have another man by tomorrow. Jay-Z with the ugly self, still the decade now, horning and all. Ouch. And she sold the narrative, have you all bitter and single and independent. She with Blue hug up with the family in the mansions.
They have other children,
I know. But Blue is the easiest name to see. That's the folly of youth. And the problem, Michelle, and I try to advise this to any youth that wants to listen to this advice. I understand that youth has folly in it. I understand that youth has that kind of feeling of invincibility, and that allows for lots of foolish decisions because you feel like those decisions have no consequences to you. But what you need to try to do is, as best as you can, do not make decisions that would have permanent consequences. Because there's nothing that can be done about that. That's the nature of the word permanent. And okay, yes, it was the folly of youth. I was stupid, I wasn't thinking, I was young. But the consequence is still permanent. You can't undo the consequence. No amount of regret and wringing of your hand and sorry. And that's, again, to go back with how we ended up here, with the sinister nature of the narrative sold to some of these women. Antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds and cat food is going to sell like woe in the next 10 years. When the dogs die at 14 and you recognize you weren't actually a dog, mom, that was your pet, and you have to buy another dog.
I'm not buying an next dog. No, but I mean, this is the thing, right? Talking about this. When you say something about consequences, lifelong and blah 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 blah. Mm-hmm. How can I try young as possible? One of those consequences that might be a lifelong situation. If it was in a bad relationship where you had to child with the wrong person. So I think a lot of women try to stay clear of that part, but then we ended up on the part of absolutely no child, no husband, no prospects, no nothing. So it's like, what was your pickings? Childlessness or teen pregnancy?
I don't think those are the pickings. I don't even think those are close to the pickings. Like, here's the reason I don't buy that. When I see cultures where people are interested in marrying young, they marry young. The people who are not interested in marrying young don't marry young. But people who want to marry young still marry young. How come they don't have all of these magical difficulties?
I don't know, probably they have good parents.
Luke says can't miss what you never had. That's actually wrong, Luke. And women have said that there's now an epidemic of that very same thing. Women, I'm trying to remember the psychologist's name. I was watching an interview where he was speaking about that and the increase in that very same thing. You see, there are several things to understand. The vast majority of women that ever lived all had children. The idea of women living till old age and not having a family is a very strange thing. Now, people in modern humanity, strange new things are like, that's okay, we progressive, it's the modern world, we can do, but that's not how reality functions. Reality is actually very conservative. The biological nature out there is a very conservative thing. When you try things that are not typical, the chances of failure are usually like more 99.99%. So, you're going to try something that nearly no woman has tried before. And then they're realizing that, depression and anxiety hits really hard after the point of no return. After the point where you can't change your mind, That's when the depression and anxiety hits. No, I might have to take it in.
But it's always a solution.
I told you, marry young and encourage a culture of marrying young. And as you're going into it with the intention of that. So you join a cultural group that brings that intention. You have friends that have that intention. If your friends are limers who are looking for the next party night on Friday, then they aren't the kind of people who would end up finding good marriage material. They would find good partiers because that's who they look for. Find some married people. Trust me, you see, if you get some married women as friends, they would make it their mission to get you married too. No one is a bigger matchmaker than married women. You see, married women, all of a sudden they think they're the matchmakers on earth.
I don't really know any married woman.
Problem right there. If you want to fly, you would line with ostriches.
Listen, it's not my fault. They're not married just like me, right? They're probably saying the same thing, right?
Well, you need to find a group of people who married, obviously.
Everybody my age, everybody, okay, I'm lying with married people, but they older than me.
Well, good. Better yet, they will teach you things you don't know. Yeah, I know, Michelle, I know, and negative realities on one doesn't negate the other. I know, yes, you could get a bad deal on the other side. I am aware of that. But yeah, as I was saying, where Luke said you can't miss something you never had. Speaking of women, and also to bear in mind with this, a woman's body, the literal human makeup of the woman's body, is engineered to bear a child. Don't you think there would be significant biological imperatives to make women feel satisfied for the thing that their body is engineered to do? And then if the body is deprived of it, they may have negative consequences. Correct, Michelle, correct. I women like her, avoid married women like the plague. Yeah, that's part of the problem, Ronnie. Birds of a feather flock together. If you're liming with a group of unmarried partying women, well, you're going to be unmarried and partying. They aren't even going to be interested in finding prospects for you. If they're looking for a good man for you, they're going to be looking, yeah, he's party good enough. We meet in a lime in the first place. So, well, how good is that guy going to be? I bet you if you had a group of 5 married women friends, they will know of a man friend they have who want to get married. Hey, I know just the man. I know just the man for you. I remember when my 2 elder brothers were married first, and I wasn't yet married, but I had my wife was my girlfriend at that point in time. And I made a joke with one of my sisters-in-law. And I said, I was saying, like, me and my girl done, And after convincing her, the next thing out of her is, well, I had to find somebody for you. That's how the married people move. They always on a matchmaking mode. Well, nearly always.
Sometimes they're matching for themselves, but that's okay.
Well, that's better than not matching for anything. Yes, they might be matching for themselves, but if you're their friend, them matching for themselves is also a benefit. They're looking
matching for themselves, like they want
to steal your man. Well, I don't know about that. That's a whole other kind of ball game we're talking about there. But
no, I don't avoid married people. I like liming with married people. I like liming with families. Like this whole week I was liming with this family from Scotland, and I really enjoyed it. It was so nice. We had great conversation, blah blah blah. But they don't live here, so they ain't have no man here. You know? But apparently in
And that's another thing, Ronnie, and I'm not saying this is what you're doing, but I see this in many women who complain about those things. They waste their time. So a woman is 27 and saying, I want to be married and I can't find anybody, and blah, blah, blah. So what are you going to do? Well, I have plans. I'm going to sign up to do my master's, and then I'm going to do my PhD. What? You're wasting your time. Unless your plan is to go in the master's program to go find somebody. Because if you're going to dedicate 4 more years to school, what are you talking about looking for someone?
Okay, I'm going to the hardware tomorrow. I'm going to the hardware because a handyman would be nice.
Find married women. Find a married woman crew. Find out where the married women lie. And they don't lime late. You might have to go brunch with them or something. Find out where they lime. Get in a married woman crew.
I'll see.
If you want to fly, you cannot lime with the ostriches.
I just don't know much married women. Oh my goodness, that's so hard to believe.
Well, there's the problem, Ronnie. There is the problem. Get in and you see, at one point in time, this was solved because churches. If you were in a church, trust me, you would have known married women. Every church has a cadre of married women. There are church mothers that are there, and you could go befriend them and figure that out. But when we're all atomized individuals living, blowing in the breeze, bouncing one to the other, where do you find such groups? The only group you have is the liming group you had coming off from school and those days. And well, the liming group would stay liming.
Yes, I understand where you guys are going, but listen to what I am saying. Okay, list of married people I know. A co-worker, only one. I work in my office, that's that, but only one of them married.
Ronnie,
yeah.
you are identifying your problem. And here's the thing. You could keep identifying your problem and say, I just don't know any married people. And okay, that will remain your problem. Or you could try to solve that problem and get to know some married people.
Searching for married people on Tinder. Married couples.
You'll find it wrong. Ronnie. I see why you're still single. You don't know how to look. We need, I wonder, people is charged for this these days, and I have to open a service.
Yeah,
That's strange, Michelle. That office shaky. But yes, there was once upon a time institutions solved this issue of where to find these people. It's in the institution solved these issues between your family, which was the first institution you were in. Your family would have aunts, your family would have your mother, your family may have your grandmother, and those are the matriarchs of the family. So you start off with married women in your institution. Then your church would have been the next circle outside of your family, and churches would have married women. But if if the institution of the family is disintegrating, the institution of churches are disintegrating, what do we have? The institution of the club and the bar, and good luck finding a husband with the single independent ladies drinking punching on a Tuesday night.
Yeah, that's not me. I don't feel comfortable. But I think, okay, I know that I am extremely hard to work with when it comes to certain things, right? I don't think any of my aunts married, actually. I think every single one of them are like one of them. All but one is divorced, right? All but one. And that is what, 8 aunts?
Ronnie, you're waving a red flag vigorously in front.
Oh, how is that my red flag? My parents are married, right? And I'm happy about that.
Ronnie, let me tell you this. If I was talking to a fella on the other side, And he told me he met a girl, but she's real lime, eh? She's only lime with a set of single liming girls. She don't know no married woman. She don't lime with no married woman. She's only lime with single werewolves out there. And all her aunts divorced. That's her family institution. Does she go to church? Well, I don't know, because she don't line with no married women, so probably not. No married women in church?
Yeah, they are. They have their married people clique.
Join it. But if I was talking to a fella on the other side of that, I would have told him that's a red flag.
That's a red flag?
Yeah.
Wow.
I would have told him that. Because it seems like you are a person who might be a little shaky on the marriage footing. You are surrounded by people who are either not serious about it, not serious about staying in, not serious about getting in. It seems like a red flag, doesn't it? And Michelle, on the topic of arranged marriage, I agree with it, actually. I think your parents, by and large, would choose a much better partner for you. I think, though, in modern times, that it might work best with a kind of hybridized model, but
probably a matchmaker.
Yeah, like they provide you with options. They provide you with options, and you choose from the options. Or you bring the options home to them to agree. Nah, they provide you with options, and you choose from the options. I kind of like that. And I think it would actually function much better, because I think the idea of people choosing their own spouse has ruined the concept of what marriage was originally about. Marriage was about the family, about the children. It wasn't just about finding love and the heart going and the chick flick kind of thing. It was about family, and that's why you could not divorce, because it wasn't about if you had irreconcilable differences. Nobody cared. You had to stay together to make sure that the family institution stayed intact. This was the joining of two families. The Georges and the Josephs met, and they all got to know each other. They are now one family. There is no separation.
I 100% agree.
And that idea created for stronger marriages. But now, with the idea being that marriage is a little over dating. You know, it's like, all right, we dating, then we official with a little signature and something. And well, we're not dating anymore, so best we not official anymore. And that's the level marriage has been brought to. Brent, Dan, clear love in this topic, but my question is it about women becoming mothers or being married? Not all the time marriages brings children. Good point, correct. But more often than not, marriages do bring children, barring usually something wrong. It usually brings children. But either way, a married woman, I know married women without children. As we spoke about, let's go through the primary institutions we are just speaking about. First, family. If you know married women without children in your family, what role do they play? Mother. If auntie is married to an uncle and they have no children because auntie may have PCOS or something like that, those aunties are almost always the babysitters. They want to babysit. They're always hunting a nephew or a niece to bring over. Because very likely they wanted children and it just didn't happen. Alright, you go to the other institution other than the family, the church. Married women in churches, what role do they serve? And I say church, you could use religious institute of any other nature in that same role to some extent. Mother. So a married woman plays the role of mother nonetheless. So there was I remember I made a video on that about 3 years ago, a statistic, and this one is on fathers, as Father's Day is coming up too. A statistic that shows that fathers in a community have a group effect. So if a fatherless child is in a community where there are many fathers, even if they don't have a father, the fathering effect of the fathers rubs off on them. Yeah. So, like, if a community has 99% fathers, it may look and behave like a community with 100% fathers. There's a group effect. And I wouldn't doubt that if they were to do a study on mothers, it would be similar. I think that a lot of people want to keep or take their single status into marriage. Yes, 100%. I think many people do. And I think that's incorrect. I don't think you can do that. There are couples are choosing to live together. Marriage means legal bonding of assets. Most don't want that. And here's the thing. For me, I kind of don't mind that. If, like, I don't think you should live together. I have a moral view on that and all of that. But here's what I'm saying. I think marriage should be returned to being a religious sacrament, not a state anything. It solves a lot of the confusion. Okay, bear in mind, the state being involved in marriage is a pretty recent thing. Before, for centuries, for millennia before, you never had to go and get a license and check to see if you were married before. No. The religious institutes did that. And the thing is, your whole life surrounded your religious institute. How were you going to get your child christened? How were you going to get your grandpa buried? How were you going to get any of those things done that you do in your general process of life? So you were married by the church, and in order to be divorced, you had to go back to the church. And I think that was a good solution for some of those things. I think the sphere that it was brought into of the state and the government placed it in the wrong place. It's not supposed to be here. There are a couple. So to connect that with what Michelle was saying, maybe the best thing might be for couples who are not interested in marriage. You all do what people have been doing and shack up, and let people who are serious in marriage do it at a religious level and actually be serious about it, like really serious, and let it actually work for what it's intended to work for.
Okay, but I just wanted to say that is okay. I have different views on marriage than even my own family, right? So, like, one of my aunts getting remarried, and I told her not to come to her wedding because I don't believe in remarriage, right? And everybody's upset with me for that, but I have very strong views on marriage, right?
Make your stand,
I'm with,
I rate you, make your stand.
And which is why I don't line with one of the girls. Right, the marriage group in church, I don't line with them because one of the girls, she was with a man who was married, and she make a chance to the man and come and he leave the wife and marry her. And I was not interested, so I say the church don't even have a proper stance on marriage and divorce. So that's why I do not line with them. But I just say probably I should still go and, entertain a little bit, but in all honesty, it's not the style of marriage that they have is not something I believe in. You understand? I have one aunt, I forget, she married and she has never been divorced yet, but her husband was divorced, so that is cool. But
no, I agree with
what I view marriage as. So that's why I don't really have much marriage friends. Don't get me wrong, I don't have much single friends either. I don't have much friends. So it's not like I run around here and shutting, punching, and no, I'm not. I literally just lie in small groups or whatever, like one or two friends or whatever. So that's why this year I decided, you know what, I'm going to start doing a lot more activities. So, like, I don't know if I said that, but this year, everything that somebody asked me to do, within reason, I would say yes, right? So I went ahead and did a lot of different things. I joined a hike club, I did some dancing, I picked back up music. I just started doing a lot of different things so that way I can expand my circle a little bit more, because since COVID, I was living in my house. And one or two places will see me, but since COVID, I've already been out. So I try my best to get back out there and do different things. be active, see people, let people see me. But that's still, I ain't trying.
I understand what you're saying, and listen, the vision of what you said, if they are corrupt institutions, then maybe you should not go befriend those people. Well, then some questions could be asked about where you spend your time. Like,
Yeah.
Luke asked if someone should find religion if they're looking, and I would say yes. And I would say find sensible religion. Because that was always the point of religion. That was the purpose of it. We've lost that idea now and think that religion was just superstition that those people did because they had nothing else to do. But if you're a pirogue on the open sea, you need to have a direction in which to paddle. Things start to get real confusing in life when there's no formula for this thing. So yes, I would say yes, Luke. But I would add a caveat to that. Find practical, sensible, real. And if it isn't real, then it's not doing the job. I have the same number of kids, but I don't think that my marriage is what drove me to have... My parents are not married. My parents had 2 kids together and my dad had 2 others. I have the same number of kids, but I don't think that my marriage is what drove me to have them. Well, I not drive you to have them, but because you're married, you have them inside the marriage.
I'm not saying I'm looking for a perfect marriage to model after whatever. Like, my parents' marriage isn't perfect. I know that for a fact. I live in a house. But doesn't mean that I don't believe in their marriage any more or less. They married for almost 30 years. I understand? So I know in marriage it have ups, it have downs, it have cuss, it have this, it have that. But you stay married.
Francis Sylvan, I disagree with that statement, not in religion, but in spirituality. I think that statement actually throws out the benefit of what religion gives. And it takes the disadvantages of the religion and throws out the benefits. You see, the idea of religion is the institution. It is the rigid set of rules. It is the practices. It is the norms. It is the beliefs. It is the schedule. It is the reoccurring habits. That is the religion, and that is the part that is key. The idea of spirituality is all nebulous, I don't go anywhere, I don't function, but I have a connection. And I think that is actually going in the wrong direction. That's how we ended up in the problem in the first place. That's how we ended up where we are in the first place. I think what we need is the religion. It's not a bad word. It's not a bad word. We need those sets of practices and beliefs. People need to be able to identify what they believe and what direction they're heading in. That's my belief on that. I don't get me wrong, in my younger times, I flirted with the ideas of spirituality more than religion and the universe using instead of God and all that. But as you actually dive into it, you see, that's the wrong direction. It's trying to sacrifice the thing that we actually need from the institutions. It's like when people want families, but they don't want the patriarchy. The patriarchy is rule by father. That's what patriarchy means. Just by the way, rule by father is what patriarchy means. The nuclear family is by definition a patriarchal institute. That's how it works. If you don't want the patriarchy, you don't want the nuclear family. You cannot have one without the other. That's like wanting the spirituality without the religion. You want the benefits and the societal stability of nuclear families, but without that patriarchal controlling kind of thing. You see that way men have where they could be kind of domineering and they bossy. No. We don't want that. That's actually what creates the order. A daddy sitting on his lazy boy couch telling his son no. That's what creates the order. That instantiation happening over and over in little microcosms throughout the society is what creates the order. Daddy sitting down eating a big plate, boy, I tell you no. Order created. Michelle says, I've heard women say men are unable to lead unselfishly and thus they don't want marriage. I disagree with that too. I disagree with that. It's like to me similar to the bear versus man argument. Like, go back through the annals of history. Look at every top male story that men tell. The stories that men tell of themselves. Not when women write the story for men. Men write these stories themselves, tell it to themselves and of themselves. What is the top story you see? Men sacrificing themselves. Like, some of these young foolish women talking about the bear rather than the man, not knowing that these men out there, if you are with a man and you stumble across a bear in the forest, he's more likely to be a hero. Run, darling, I am going to stop this. Many men are going to do that because that's many men's fantasy in the first place. So the idea that men rule unselfishly, I are unable to rule unselfishly, I disagree with that. There's evidence of that too, statistical evidence. You look, one of the talking points of the red pill. Women make more money and think they don't need a man. Men make more money and think they could take care of a family. That's the stereotype. When men make more money, they start looking for people to take care of. Women make more money and they aren't looking for people to take care of you. They're looking for a man wealthier than them to still take care of them. That's what hypergamy talks about. You do road interviews and ask couples. A bandit comes in here and they say one of you have to die. Who is going to? And most men are going to offer up themselves. Yes, Michelle, there are some horror stories. Yes. There are horror stories in nearly everything. There are some people who drank water and drowned, but you need water to drink. And here's the thing with women that makes some of that a little more difficult, Michelle. Women are more neurotic. Women are more sensitive to the negatives out there. So, one marriage horror story might be enough to sour women who have heard 100 pleasant stories about marriage, because they tend to focus more than men, at least, on the negatives. So there are problems in that, and the negatives aren't necessarily representative of reality, and the negatives aren't necessarily a given that is unavoidable. There are signs that can allow you to avoid the negatives better. Ronnie, you see, you talk and we end up with a whole hour extra in it.
Oh God, sorry.
I didn't say it's a problem. I was just saying how you were worried that you ain't get to talk or something. So you see.
No, I just wanted some people to talk to. My dog not talking to her. She's sick now.
The dog does not speak English, Ronnie.
Well, that's true.
You weren't aware of that?
Oh, she wants this bike now.
Well, Ronnie. I think Michelle has contacts to therapists and stuff. If you are assuming that your dog is supposed to talk to you. Exactly. Maybe you know any connections in the sister aisle, Michelle? Because
like she could lie down by my foot and just be nice. What she want to do is bite me. So that's sad.
It's a dog, Granny. It's a puppy. That's what puppies do.
Your puppy just bite you off it?
Yes. I have four of them, and all of them bite me. All the time. Constantly. Occasionally I give them a little kick.
Oh no, I don't get nothing to kick.
Yeah, I kick my dog. Like, not a volley. Like, what you feel like I scoring a penalty kick with the dog? No. Just like a little, gosh, dog, move now, and give him a little flip back on the back or something like that. You have to be able to push them off.
It's just like I'm not.
And not a kick. It's a kick. Leave the technicalities. Give them something to chew on. They need proper training. True. But my dogs are pottongs. We don't do that proper training with these pottongs in these parts. These pottongs just live their best life. They're out here living their best life. Train nothing. They come pre-programmed. Anyway, people, that's all I have for now. R. McDonald says marriage is good and you must be able to compromise because it's two that becomes one. That is religious teaching, R. McDonald, and that's why I said if you want those things, you have to return marriage to a religious sacrament. You see, the state does not see marriage as two becoming one. The state sees marriage as two. That's why you can split. Alright, later people, good night all. Nathan will reach yeah, people. Reach out.
Hi, everybody. I was downloading the video
on the bear.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
As Trini Hotep always says, be mindful, not mindless. Thank you guys for tuning in. Good night. I will be here for the next Mindful Live, which is going to be tomorrow night around that 9:30 p.m. time. Until then, people, take care, stay well, stay safe, stay inside, outside, they're a little sketchy. Later.